Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. In studio, we have the insane Daryl Wayne.
Yes, I'm here.
You're here.
Yeah.
And we also have Nick Newman, who is co-hosting with us. Nick is does all kinds of things in the alternative health world. And on our phone, we've got a guy that we've talked to at least once before, and we've done a couple of programs with the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And we're going to talk to the executive director of the Los Angeles County chapter of Susan G. Komen. And we're going to talk today about the Circle of Promise initiative. Mark, welcome back to Late Night Health.
Well, thank you, Mark. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you as well. What is the Circle of Promise?
It's a specific African-American initiative to get women, African-American women and women of color, into regular mammography. Right now in L.A. County, African-American women die at a rate 70% higher than Caucasian and Asian women. And it's really from not enough early detection, not enough repeat mammography. So that's the very thrust of it, is to do a cultural change and make that happen.
Culturally, African-Americans, women just don't get mammographs or other testing for breast cancer?
Not as often. And so oftentimes when it is discovered, then it's at a later stage. It might be 5 or 6 years in between them getting a mammogram. And part of it's socioeconomic. Part of it might be a transportation issue. It might be they put the kids in the family first, and they put themselves on the back burner. So they're not as concerned about their own health as they are taking care of their family. That's and there's some fear factors there.
Of course, and there's also men do that.
Yes,
we don't go to the doctors like we should in general.
No, we don't.
Right,
especially for that one exam, because it's just like
that one is yes.
And if you're over 50, it's time.
It is time, boy. And now they're saying every 5 years for that one.
As long as unless you've got a family history or something like that, and then that's more a little more frequent.
Right. Mark Pilon from the Susan G. Komen Foundation, our guest. What about the cost of mammography? Is that a hindrance to the African American community?
It is perceived as a hindrance, but really there is a program in California. It's called Every Woman Counts. And that literally means every woman over 40 can go in and get a no-cost mammogram at a variety of places. You can call a clinic, you can call some of the hospitals, see if they have the EWC program. You can actually call EWC directly. They've got an 800 number, and find out where you can go close to your home to get a mammogram.
What about education of African American women? Years and years ago, I did a series of TV shows on. I produced a series of TV shows for different ethnicities for a variety of disease states. And it was fascinating to me to know that the Hispanic and African American and even the Asian community, to a certain extent, did not have access to education as the Caucasian or white community.
Well, that's true. But one of the things about a Circle of Promise, probably the most significant portion of that, is that working with the faith-based community, and that's getting first ladies from all of the major churches and congregations. We do a train the trainer with them, so that they come in and we go through all of the basic breast cancer 101, and then we encourage them to go back to their congregations and do events, educational events, mobile mammography. We'll talk about it 1 week. We'll do sign-ups the second week, and then have the mobile mammogram unit there on the third week. So we really can have, when it's coming from a trusted source, like one of the first ladies of their church, it's much more effective than me walking in and saying, "Hey, you need to do this."
Right. No, absolutely. I did one of those videos I did was on hypertension, which is also more common in the African American community than the Caucasian community. and part of it is diet related. So we did this whole, we videotaped some things and some interviews, and one of the women at the church, we were on the south side of Chicago, invited me and the crew for lunch, and where they used to have fried chicken, they had baked chicken and things like that. But to eat at the church, you had to have your blood pressure taken. It was a requirement. And so if your blood pressure was high, what they would do is they'd send you over to a nurse practitioner, and you'd talk to her and make an appointment, and then you could eat. And so my crew and I had to have our blood pressure taken before we had some of the best baked chicken that I've ever had in my life, which I think is the kind of thing that you're talking about, getting the church, the faith-based community involved with health.
Well, it's the most trusted resource in the community, and so that's the best avenue and access point for us. Plus, you're reaching multitudes of individuals, men and women, just to talk about health. And then more and more groups with cervical, with heart, with American lung, we're doing combined events and really collaborating. So once we get a group of individuals at a certain place, then we talk about blood pressure, we talk about cervical cancer, we talk about prostate cancer, we talk about breast cancer. And we really try to do this spectrum to provide as much education as possible, because you've got them captive. You've got a community captive.
And that makes sense, because they, again, don't have access to the information as readily as the rest of the population. Do we know why the African American community has significantly higher cancer rates, breast cancer rates?
They don't have higher breast cancer rates, Mark. It's that there's a
higher mortality rate,
later stage diagnosis, and that's the reason why. And that's that gap of, well, I had a mammogram 7 years ago and I was okay, so I don't need one. And it's getting it into that really cultural shift and making it part of their health care on an annual basis, because that's the thing that makes a difference. When it's stage 1, stage 2, there's a 95% cure rate. But when it gets later than that, that's when the treatments get more challenging, and you can have more aggressive, things going on. So it's really about the early detection.
Nick, did you have something? Were you going to say something? Or
No.
No, okay. Nick Newmont.
But
Daryl raised his hand. They look alike. I'm sorry.
The incidence of discovering breast cancer in men has increased.
Yes, it has, and not real drastically, but it has. Yes,
but it's becoming more well known. I think a few celebrities have had breast cancer. I'm thinking Peter Criss, drummer for Kiss, had breast cancer surgery because he had breast cancer.
Richard Roundtree.
And
Richard! Wow.
And the more and more as we age and get older and get more rounder as we get older, sometimes our breast size increases. They talk about moobs or whatever the case may be. Is there a schedule or like a male mammogram? How is breast cancer discovered in men?
They actually do the same thing. Men and women both really just have to be very cognizant of their own bodies and know that something's a little odd, something's off over here, and be willing to go into their physician and have it checked out. But with men, so many men don't even know that they can get breast cancer. Actually, and our breast tissue is really large. I mean, from wraps around the sides and the sternum and way up by the collarbone and things. And ours can be anywhere, where the vast majority, although not all, of women's breast cancer happens right in the mammary gland. So men just are clueless about it.
And you do the same test, the mammogram, for that?
Yes. I'm sure that if somebody has a zero body fat and there's just no flesh there,
right,
then they do ultrasounds, they do other tests to see if there's any kind of an abnormality.
What about the compression Is that what you were asking, Daryl?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
My wife has told me it's not a pleasant experience for her, and it certainly wouldn't be for me either, I don't think.
Well, one of us, I guess the size, that's part of the problem is that with the size of the breast, and you're compressed when you're having the test. My wife has said the same thing. It is not the most comfortable thing, but it's a potentially life-saving exam.
Exactly.
Right? Should all men have that, or
no? I don't. What we really do is we look at men that might be symptomatic, or if you've got some kind of a history, because men can carry the BRCA gene, and that's important. It can come down through the men's side of the family, and so if you know that and there's a history, then you just talk to your physician and watch it.
Our guest is the executive director of the Los Angeles chapter of the Komen Foundation, and we're talking about the Circle of Promise. We've kind of expanded to other issues as well. Mark Pilon is our guest, and we're glad that he's with us. Nick Newmont from the Newmont Center in Agoura Hills, California, is with us in studio as our co-host, and of course, as always, the wonderful, insane Daryl Wayne is joining us. All right, more information on the Circle of Promise is coming up as Late Night Health continues. And if you go to latenighthealth.com, we'll have some information and a link to the website right there. Okay, Mark and I and our gang of Nick and Daryl return. Don't go away.